Welcome back for another week of our fantasy football vidcast here at the Daily Illini. My name's JJ.
And I'm Erik.
And we're joined by special guest John Kravetz of the Illinois baseball team. Thank you for joining us, John.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Fantasy football, not a good week. We're into week 5 now, and I can't even take my own advice. My teams are bad. I've got no excuses. I keep recommending things to happen, and then I either don't do them or take them and then not fully take my advice, and it just tanks. And now I'm 0-4 and 2-2 between my two leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. My only saving grace is that I'm 1-3, so I'm one game ahead of you in the league that we're both in.
Yep.
My one win coming this previous week, thanks to Jordy Nelson. But so, I mean, like Jordan, I can't really, I'm not too hot.
What about you, man?
Yeah, I've had kind of a solid start. Not really used to it. I'm 4-0 in my leagues, 3-1 in actually the two other ones.
Oh, man.
So I'm not used to this. It's probably not going to last very long. But I'm due for some unfortunate injuries or something. We'll see what happens.
Well, I think my unfortunate thing this week was I took the Falcons defense thinking they can't be that bad, can they? And, of course, they somehow were against Minnesota. They lost like a negative 10 points. I'm not even sure how that happens. How are they the lowest scoring defense of the week? But it happened, and it happened on my team, neutralized my wide receivers' production, and it was just awful.
It's got to be brutal. I mean, the Falcons defense. So, I mean, kind of sticking on topic with the defenses and for pickups of the week. My pickup of the week is going to be the Philadelphia defense. They're going up against St. Louis. St. Louis, as you know, lost their starting quarterback, Sam Bradford, lost their backups, now they're down to a third stringer. Philly, their special teams performed really well against San Fran. And even though that was a loss, I still think that they'll carry over that momentum.
Moving on to mine, I think that I'm going to kind of stick with that theme of picking up a player because of a struggling offense, but for a different reason. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to really have to kind of hang everything out on Allen Hurns. Especially with Cecil Shorts hurt. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to throw to someone, and they really need to get something rolling, otherwise they're doomed for another Jacksonville-esque season. So I think Allen Hurns is a good one to pick up this week, especially because getting to the point where people are getting injured left and right. Yeah. Bye weeks are happening. You're going to start needing some people, and me especially. I mean, I know my teams are terrible. So I'm taking Allen Hurns. I'm keeping him on the bench. I'm going to look as it gets a little closer. I might even play him in a flex. I'm not entirely sure yet, but he could have a decent week, especially against Pittsburgh, who has allowed 20-plus points in every game.
Pittsburgh does have a few serious injuries, too, again, like Ike Taylor. So, good.
Yeah. Who are you picking up?
A guy I like is Kyrie Robinson with the New Orleans Saints. He's kind of emerged as the go-to guy with Mark Ingram out, kind of overtaking Pierre Thomas as their, 3-down back. But, I like him, kind of potent offense. They're kind of due to get going, I feel. So, I like Kyrie Robinson this week. He was available in the league that I needed running back in, so I picked him up. I'm not sure what his availability is throughout fantasy football, but he's available for me.
With dinged up kind of running backs or people that are just straight up out, like Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, with issues like that, it's kind of hard to say, but my not of the week is Alfred Morris against the Seahawks defense on Monday night. Seahawks defense has shown some weak points, but I feel as if it's more in the pass game. The run defense has had some struggles. They've had struggles more so than they looked last year, but that Washington's offense is really going to try and put everything it can on Kirk Cousins. So I would not expect in prime time against the Seahawks defense for Alfred Morris to do a whole lot.
And you just got to expect, too, the Seahawks have this game film of Cousins just laying a dud against the Giants, so they're going to just stack that box and stop Morris.
Exactly.
My not of the week's staying within the NFC East is Darren Sproles from the Eagles. As you guys know, he had a big week, too. Since then, he's put up in the standard ESPN league. He's put a total of 9 points. He hasn't done much, and I just don't feel confident in playing him anymore.
He's definitely struggling. I would agree with that being a nod. I wouldn't say go as far as to toss him.
No, don't
toss Morris either.
He's one of those frustrating players because he has that potential. Every time he touches the ball, he can always take it to a big gain and touchdown. So he's one of those frustrating players. You have to keep him, but you're running that risk.
Yep, exactly.
The guy I don't like this week is Chris Johnson. I don't really like him. The Jets' offense is kind of a disaster. And I was playing character Chris Ivory. I had Chris Johnson out of the league. Thought maybe he'd emerge as every down back for them and get lead that running game, especially with kind of a struggling passing game. How they rely on running the ball. Hasn't really been the case. Hasn't been able to get going. So if you have a better option than Chris Johnson or Wayne between two guys, I think I'd probably try and sit out Chris Johnson this week.
Yeah, maybe even look at Chris Ivory. He had a pretty big game for the Jets. Yeah. So, I mean, Ivory's been like a no-name almost, basically. You had Chris Johnson, a rushing leader from a couple years ago. Yeah, guy's
pretty popular. I'm sure he's probably gone higher in leagues than he probably should have.
It's got to be worrisome to be so disorganized. I mean, that Jets offense does not look good.
Yeah.
It's got to be tough. But what has got to be relieving for a team like Pittsburgh that has had some struggles is for Le'Veon Bell against Jacksonville this week. I know I was talking for Jacksonville and Alan Hearns, but at the same time, I think Le'Veon Bell is poised to have a great game.
Mm-hmm.
He's running against Jacksonville, and really not much more needs to be said. Jacksonville is a bad team. They are not doing well, and Le'Veon Bell should be in your lineup anyways, but I would expect him to be a hot week. So if you're on the line between Le'Veon Bell and most of the other players that could potentially push him out, put Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, definitely.
This week.
Another running back that I think is going to do really well is Matt Asiata. Now, I'm only recommending him for the short term. First off, he's coming off that 3-touchdown game. He's going up against Green Bay. Number one, they have the worst run defense in the NFL currently, so that should be a boost of stats. But I say short term because the guy behind him, Jerick McKinnon, he's shown a lot more big playability and better runner than Asiata. So I think it's maybe more mid-season down the line, he's going to be the guy to overtake Asiata.
But I would agree against Green Bay. Green Bay's run defense looks like Chicago's.
Keep ride Asiata until he tires out or until they pull him.
It's a very week-to-week thing. But against something, I mean, look at Matt Forte. I mean, Matt Forte has been kind of struggling, been kind of stuffed up by teams like the Jets and San Francisco.
And boom,
he comes out, and absolutely. He was 1 touchdown short of being probably one of the best running backs of the week.
I agree,
The guy I like is Jerry Maclin. It was probably a starter on most teams, but I think had his worst week of the year last week against the Niners. And the guy I like he's emerged as the go-to guy. With Deshaun Jackson gone, you weren't sure if he was going to split with Riley Cooper or who'd be the go-to guy. Jerry Maclin's the guy. That's who Nick Foles is looking to. I look for their passing game to get on track this week playing the Rams. And with that offense, even last year, I remember Eagles having a few bad games. Every single time, bounce back in a huge game. It's a perfect opportunity at home playing the Rams, kind of an iffy pass defense. So I love Jerry Maclin this week.
Coming back strong from that injury,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for our matchup of the week, we're not going to stick with those birds, but we're going to go with the Arizona Cardinals versus the Denver Broncos. And I think, Arizona is looking stronger than they've looked since Kurt Warner times.
Yeah, I think this is probably a surprising matchup. I don't think anyone expected Arizona to be where they are right now. So it speaks testament to Bruce Arians and that whole team. But I think it should be a great matchup. Arizona has a pretty stingy defense, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, sure. And if you can push Denver to the brink, you don't even necessarily need to beat them. But if you can push them all the way, that says a hell of a lot about your team.
In Denver.
Absolutely.
We'll find out if the Cardinals are for real this week.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's definitely defines their season this week.
Yeah.
And you're going to see teams out there. I mean, Arizona's got some things going on. I mean, they've got some Larry Fitzgerald's getting kind of old. They've got some running back situations that are they've been iffy for years. And
Carson Palmer's hurt.
Palmer's hurt, yeah.
And then you've got Peyton Manning, who, I mean, really,
Peyton Manning.
That's pretty much what you have to say. Just Peyton Manning. I mean, they don't have Moreno back there anymore, but they don't really seem to be struggling offensively.
Yeah. I sort of think the Cardinals are for real. I think we'll find out this week. We'll get a little taste of it. We'll see.
Certainly will.
Even with the injuries they had and beat the Niners with Drew Stanton playing quarterback, others starting quarterback. I think they could sneak in the playoffs.
Definitely be a one to keep your eye on if you have.
Could be 3 NFC West teams in the playoffs.
Yes,
absolutely.
It would be scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to tweet at us if you have any fantasy football questions, and then be sure to tune in next week as we discuss Week 6 and hopefully not gripe about my fantasy team next week. Thank you.